Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and in today's episode, I sat down with two extremely brilliant entrepreneurial geniuses that I look up to and continue to learn so much from. These are a couple of friends that I met through the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. They are Pharant and Barb Stuhlemmer. I spent an evening hanging out and socializing with Dana and Barb the day before we held an intensive day-long business mastermind with two other incredible business owners because we had a few minutes and were discussing some really interesting things that evening. I asked if it would be okay for me to break out the recorder and record about 20 or so minutes of our chat so I could share some of their insights with my listeners. Now, I do plan on having them both back for their own separate and unique interviews for the podcast in the near future, but I just couldn't wait to share the awesomeness that happens when you put a couple of brilliant people in a room together and ask them questions. And that's what this conversation with Barb and Dana is. I just get to sit back and lob some great questions at them and just listen to the richness that comes out of them. Bit of a background for them. Dana Pharant is a business owner, a speaker, author, and the host of the Inner Dominatrix podcast, where she shares insights into how people can be the leader in their business by owning that space, by becoming the dominatrix in their business. And as Dana says, dominatrix energy is feminine energy, a totally different kind of power. You simply stand and state your position. You don't try to justify it. You don't second guess yourself. When you step into your dominatrix energy and surrender into the present moment, you can see the bigger picture and scout out what needs to be done. And that will take your business to an entirely new level of success. You'll be a superstar handling everything with ease. Now, shortly after I left Kobo to explore my life as a full-time writer and consultant, I was a guest on episode 77 of Dana's podcast, and that episode had the subtitle, Transition Time Can Be Fun, because she caught me right in the midst of that transition, and she was fascinated by what I was going through. Now, Barb Stuhlemmer, who also runs and owns her own business, is an author and a speaker as well. She's worked for more than 30 years with incorporated business. She's a master business strategist whose goal is to inspire ambitious business growth so entrepreneurs that are driven to grow their business can reach the million and multi-million dollar mark in their businesses and still enjoy their lives and have that balance. She's developed a unique process for owners of the businesses who are fed up with being overwhelmed by all the responsibilities and the lack of control over the time and the money required to grow the business. Her business is called Blitz Business Success, and she is a confidant to CEO and business leaders. I learned so much from her book, Entrepreneur Awakening, Making the Move from Employee to Business Owner, which came out just around the same time I was going through that transition. And you can be sure that I used tips from Barb's book to help guide me in my own recent transition of that exact type. Now, as mentioned, I was at a business mastermind earlier this week, and I was with four absolutely amazing women, Barb and Dana, as well as the other two women. They're all CEOs of their own businesses. Now, I was honored and privileged to be invited into this mastermind, and admittedly, while I have operated and managed multi-million dollar businesses multiple times over the years, it was always as a manager or a director for a corporation, and I was using someone else's money. So, I could invest millions or hundreds of thousands in different efforts, but the risk was never mine. Even though it was successful every time, the risk was never mine. Now, I'm new to the entrepreneur, self-employed world, so though I do have that business management experience, I still feel kind of like a newbie because now the risk is mine. Now the money is mine. But the cool thing is that all four of these wonderful women welcomed me in with open arms, open minds, and open hearts. And for this business mastermind, we had a truly stunning in-depth workshop and brainstorm session. And I came away with so many great ideas. A very specific list of to-dos for my own business. Now, just to explain, my own business basically is my Stark Publishing Solutions business of consulting and coaching and offering guidance to authors and publishers when it comes to strategy in their digital publishing life. That is sort of half of what I'm doing on my own, and the other half is the actual writing aspect of it. And I plan on making a full-time living income from both of those businesses. But what I love about the mastermind is that, so we had signed NDAs, and so we could just be completely open, and we could share the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to the intricacies of our own businesses. We share ideas, thoughts, perspectives, we offer constructive feedback, and we push one another to be the best we can be, to be better than we were yesterday, and to not give up and to not fall prey to all those things that always happen, especially to writers, that lack of self-confidence, because it happens to everyone, where they don't believe strongly in themselves, and so there's these constant reminders. There's a lot of tough love in the group, and I feel so comfortable and so much more confident from having this great experience, because this was our first in-person session, and we will continue to have monthly sessions and quarterly in-person sessions. And it was my first business mastermind, and I came away from it absolutely engaged and excited and enthusiastic. So one great thing is that at the end of the day, my 4 business mastermind partners are holding me accountable to some very specific takeaways. Now, one of the takeaways is completing and actually publishing the nonfiction book that I keep relegating to the back burner. I've now set a publishing deadline for it, and I need to deliver a completed and edited draft of the manuscript on September 5th. Plan on having the book live in October. You'll be hearing more about that as I get it ready for pre-order and actually commit to that, so I can actually have that deadline pushing me. Now, the book's working title is Indie Publishing Insider Secrets: What Running Kobo Writing Life, a print-on-demand business, and 25 years of bookselling taught me about success for authors, publishers, and self-publishing services. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful, a big, giant SEO keyword term mouthful, and I'll likely keep tweaking it. But that's the title of the book, and that's basically what the book is about. It's me sharing these experiences. Now, I already have about 20,000 words from the book written, and I'm expecting it to be somewhere in the realm of 50 to 60,000 words. Now, the idea for the book is to just document the various things I've learned and to lay them out in a way that writers can read and learn from. And yes, I share insights on this podcast, but not everyone prefers to learn via audio, and my perhaps rambling way of getting round to the point after listening to an interview. Some people have mentioned that they prefer to read, a well more thought out and edited and polished bit of text, because that's the way they prefer to learn. Now, admittedly, the book's going to have a lot of my personal flavor and slightly rambling voice and style. If you have a specific question, issue, or concern that you'd want to ensure that I would address in the book, let me know, either by leaving a comment on the show notes at starkreflections.ca or emailing me directly via mark@markleslie.ca.
Twisted by the, twisted by the, twisted by the, twisted by the fool, twisted by the fool, twisted by the fool. Such a fool.
Okay, and because you heard that annoying song, it is now time for the tongue twister segment of the show, sponsored by Findaway Voices. Today's tongue twister is another twist, and it's an easy one. For me, anyways. So instead of tripping over my tongue, I want you to say the following 2 times really fast. Mark Leslie Lefebvre. Go ahead, say that 2 times really fast. Then after saying that, spell out Lefebvre out loud, like Lefebvre, and do that 3 times really fast. Okay, that was a bit of a cheat on my part because I'm making you do all the work, but maybe it lends to the reason why I write under the name Mark Leslie, because nobody can ever spell or pronounce or do anything with Lefebvre. If you are looking for better ways to spell out and pronounce success in audiobooks, it's worth checking out Findaway Voices, the sponsor of this tongue twister segment of the show. Findaway Voices helps you in finding professional narrators to create a professional audiobook, and they also offer the world's largest distribution to places like Audible and iTunes and Kobo and Overdrive and dozens of other audiobook platforms, many of which I make money from, but I'd never heard of before Findaway Voices. And whether you have Findaway Voices help you create the professional audiobook, or if you already have a professional quality one ready to distribute, their system allows you the control over where it's distributed, as well as the pricing in most of the markets. You can check them out at starkreflections.ca/findaway.
Such a fool.
But that's enough for my intro and the tongue twister segment of the show. Let's get on to this great conversation with Barb and Dana. Dana, Barb, thanks for hanging out with me.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. This is so much fun.
So this is really fun. I'm really excited to be included in a group of really amazing CEOs and people who run these amazing businesses. And I believe I can get all this benefit that I can learn, but that writers can learn as well. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about the concept of something I share with writers all the time. And that is, before you begin thinking about marketing your book, you have to know who your target or core audience is. And because you guys started your own businesses and run successful businesses, you had to do that in a very specific way. So I'd like to talk about strategies on how you defined, how you came up with, how do you find a core audience? Like, how did you guys do this?
Well, you can either make a big mess of it, and then as a result of that, it helps you define who your core audience is. But I don't recommend that. That's not the great way to do it.
Is there an example people can learn from, Dana?
Yeah. So just classic example from just recently, I started targeting people who are fresh in the abuse. So they've just, they are still dealing with their trauma. They're very traumatized. And unfortunately, that conflicts with a lot of the stuff that I do, which is very edgy. I'm pushing boundaries. I'm getting people to think outside of the box. And what happened is that neither one could survive. So okay. I'm trying to do something for these people who are hurt and broken, but then at the same time, I still wanting to be edgy and push all the boundaries.
Okay.
And that spoke to nobody. And so really, honestly, it cost me a good 6 months of lost income, lost traction, lost followers.
Okay.
So circling back is dropping back into, okay, what is it that I can speak on all day long? What is it that I'm most passionate about? And I think for me, finding my core audience is about who am I?
Okay.
Who am I? Now, I think for book writers, it's who does the book speak to? Who did you write it for? Who did you have in mind to be a reader? So it's maybe a little different translation than a typical business, especially for me doing coaching.
Right.
I need to think about who would I love to work with all day long?
Okay. And that's how you got to the...
That's more of how I got to, who my target market is, and looking at, who am I best to serve? So because I'm edgy, because I push boundaries, because I'm looking at doing things that are more high level as far as the coaching that I do, I'm not a beginner coach, so I'm best to work with somebody who's probably already been through 2 or 3 coaches. They've been to masterminds. They've been to, Tony Robbins or a lot of the personal development stuff, and they're looking for the next level. Realizing that helps me to really lean into where my content is and target those people so that they hear the message, and the people who aren't ready are just going to fall away.
Okay.
Or wait.
That leads to the next question, is that when a client approaches you who's not appropriate, because they're not yet ready for your edginess.
Well, you talked about this today, I think.
I think
you?
so, yes.
You did.
Just say no.
Tell me about that.
So, that's an evolution. So, when you first have somebody approaching you, let's say you're starting out your business and somebody comes along and they're wanting to hand you some money, it's so tempting. You want to take that money. You're like, I want some money. I'm hungry, right? Yeah. But that, from my own experience, it costs you way more than the money that you earn. And as soon as you say no to the people that aren't a good fit, it allows you to actually have space to bring in the people who are a good fit. So
Yeah.
my
And that's
analogy,
like the same with my analogy. Are you gonna?
the steak and burger.
Oh yeah. Okay. Finish
Yes.
that first, and then I'll share.
So, so my steak and burger analogy is that it's like you're at a restaurant, you go there, and you're all prepared to invest in the steak, and you're waiting for it, you order it, and the restaurant brings you out a hamburger by mistake. And so you're starving, right? And you're just like, I'm really hungry. If you turn away the burger, it's going to take some time before they make the steak and have it ready for you. You know that there's a delay, so you have to make that choice. Are you going to eat the burger because you're really freaking hungry?
Okay.
Or are you going to turn it away and say, no, bring me what I really ordered? And that's the analogy. Like, that's what we have to make that decision on, to turn away the client that's not the great fit so that we have space for the one that is the great fit.
It's an awesome analogy. Love that
Thank
one.
you.
Yeah.
And you had something to add to that, Barb.
Well, no, I was just going to say I had a similar journey because I started out doing technical writing for medical device and software development.
Okay.
And finding out who I actually had to sell to be able to, I knew what the companies needed. I knew why they needed it. I just didn't know who I was trying to reach out to. So it's a slightly different, and you may be writing a book that you know that someone loves thrillers, but you don't actually know who loves this type of thriller. Like you were saying, sometimes you are willing to have swear words in the things that you do, and some people won't read things like that. Like, it's obviously not your genre. It's not the person that, or not your target client. So I was having a really tough time trying to figure out who is it that I need to speak to inside a corporation that wants to hire this kind of thing, or hire me to do the work that they needed done. And that was a huge challenge. But it took me like about 6 years to realize the reason why I was having so much problems, I wasn't actually even in the right business, because what I do now, I spent 6 years and about $60,000 on learning how to create better businesses and helping other people. And I was doing that for free to other people. And so I was completely in the wrong business. I was targeting the people that I wanted to work with the wrong product. So I was kind of the opposite of what you were doing. I was working with the right people, but not because I wanted to technical write with them, because I wanted to do strategic development for their business. Okay. So I had the wrong product and the right client. And then I had to kind of do a shift. And you know what? You're constantly tweaking. So for your audience, when you're creating a book, you're not just creating one book. You want to attract people that always say, oh my gosh, I always want to read X. So people who love Stephen King read Stephen King because they like the way he writes, but he writes a specific type of book. Mm-hmm. And he might have a couple different genres, and you might fall in a certain genre of his, but you don't read him for love romance things, even if he has love and romance in his books, because you're looking for something different. So yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Now I want to go back to you guys have invited me into this awesome group of really smart people, and I feel privileged and honored to be a part of it.
Because you're smart, yes.
But I just want to go back to, so how did you guys actually meet? What was the genesis for you guys?
We met through a mutual friend who was having a social gathering of her female business people that she knows.
Okay.
And that was the first meeting, about 8 years ago now, I think. Something like that. And then, we just kind of was like different networking meetings, casual. And I love telling this story because this highlights some of the work that I do, is that I was sitting one day, I was in my store, which, is sold now, thank God. But I'm sitting there, and I had said yes to going to the chamber meeting that evening. And I'm not a big fan of the chamber. So I was like, well, maybe I don't want to go. So I check in on my internal compass, which I check in for yes or no. Is this going to expand my life, or is it not? I kept getting this super expansive feel for yes, it was going to be something really good. And I'm like, really? The chamber? Seriously? No judgment there.
Okay.
Right? So, but I went. I'm like, okay, I've committed to follow the lightness, and I go, and then I do this little scan of the room. And Barb is like, it's almost as like she's got this spotlight on her. So I'm like, okay, let me go talk to Barb. So I say, hello, chit chat, what are you up to? And she's, I find out she's got this experts call that she does. And so I'm like, hey, if you ever need a guest, let me know. And then it was like, all right, I'm done. Said quick hello to somebody else and scanned the room. There was nobody else to talk to. Big surprise. And they left. Not that I have any judgment on the chamber. But so what happened, I think it was about 2 weeks later, you called me up and you said you had a guest cancel. Can I fill in? I made it work in the midst of chaos. I made it work. But that started a connection. And then, I came to a strategy day with you, and we just have been, kind of like interweaving our businesses since then.
Yeah.
So, and you connected me to Cindy Ashton, who put me on the stage at her event and has made all kinds of connections and brought me all kinds of clients. So that's the progression of following the intuition and finding that, yes, it was very expensive for my business. Long story.
That's cool. I'm glad you know the story because I didn't know it. I remember where we met. I just, and I know that it feels like we've known each other for a very long time. So I believe that in business, you're creating relationships.
Okay.
And the relationships that you build, if you don't put any effort into them, and by effort, I mean, what are you giving? Not what are you receiving, but what are you giving?
Right.
Because totally, if you're giving in the right aspect for the right reasons, you get back a huge amount. And I've got a huge amount back from Dana in all kinds of different ways, which has helped me in my life and my business and whatnot. And stand up. I can say no much easier now than I could in the past. Yes, but it gives you an opportunity to create bigger circles of friends. It allows you to invite new people in because now you have a different circle that other people want to get into.
Yeah.
So as you grow, and I always thought it was really interesting that I would go to events, so conferences and whatnot, and you'd see the guru at the front of the conference, whatever Tony Robbins type thing and they had their own little circle of people that they would invite up on the stage. And I thought, it'd be really cool to be in their circle, but that's not it. That's not your circle. Your circle is who you're with. They moved up the ladder of success with their people. They've gone through the things together. So when you recognize that the people that you're around are the ones that are now the circle that you can move up the ladder with, that's when you can create these people that when you get to the place and standing on stage, and I've been on stage with Dana before and Cindy, and we have a variety of other people, but when you get there and you're on stage and you're going, oh my gosh, this is my circle. And there's people out there going, I wish I was in their circle. And so, again, if you're an author and you want to be in with other people who are doing what you do, find the peers that are doing what you're doing at about the same level, that have different skills than you have, and create those relationships and like follow up on them.
And the ones who are willing to rise.
They have to be. Well, we talked about this earlier. Yeah.
You can't have a bunch of people who are whining about I'm a broke ass and feeling like it's never possible. You need some people who, I'm a broke ass right now, but it's possible and I'm going there.
Okay.
So are you going there with me?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So community is obviously, is it,
Huge.
what is the word? Like, what is that term when
I
you're
would
finding
say
your
peer
people?
support.
Peer? Okay.
To me it's community, but community has a different feel for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And peer support has a different, it is, but it's more than peer support, because
Yeah.
peer support sounds a little cold.
It does.
Okay.
But I
So-
think it's
It's the
a
warm,
family
fuzzy,
almost. It's almost like family,
Family.
because when you
Kinda.
get to a place, Dana could do something really stupid and piss me off,
Okay.
and I'm gonna forgive her.
Right.
And I would assume, like family.
I mean,
right?
she already has today, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
I know.
Just one today. She's like losing her no. Yeah. Or I could do something really stupid. I know
Right.
that she would forgive me, and so it's a different. It's almost like creating friendships. And we do have friendships, but I find that I can build a stronger relationship if I like someone.
Okay.
And if you can't figure out what you like in another person, then move on. And when you're building a business, like partnerships and stuff like that, I talk to the companies that I'm working with that are in partnerships, and I say to them, if you have an agreement in place because it helps you with arguments,
Yes.
but this is like a marriage, and if you decide to break up, it's like a divorce. And believe me, all the people around you, half your friends are gonna come with you, and by friends I mean your peer supports, your suppliers, your clients, whatever, and half of them are gonna go with your partner because you're divorcing. So in business and in relationships in business, and writing a book is a business, which we
Yes.
were talking about earlier.
For sure.
It is a business. It's not just writing a book. And not that I had air quotes with that. You can't see it.
We can all see the air quotes.
Yeah, you can,
Absolutely.
but yeah.
We'll put a link to the air quotes in the show notes for this.
Writing a book is definitely a business.
Yes.
And so you have to create relationships that are going to last a long time. So, yeah.
Okay, so it's that relationship building which is kind of core for.
I mean, relationships are everything. It's the people that you can reach out and say, hey, okay, I've got my book, in this case, books, right? If my book is launching, who are you people that you can reach out to and help you promote it, that they'll be like, of course, I love and adore you, I'm going to absolutely share it. There's the core people that you can count on, and then there's all the other people that maybe you can count on, and then there's a giant circle of people that you can never count on. Knowing who your inner circle is, knowing who you can count on is really important. And doesn't necessarily have to be a big inner circle. You just need to know that they've got your back, that they're going to be there, and they're going to tell you the truth. Like, to me, that's my big core value. I need somebody who's going to be honest with me. Don't fluff it.
So it's kind of like rather than 1,000 fake fans, rather have 10 really good ones.
Absolutely.
Is that true?
Absolutely.
Well, they talk about, so when you were talking about having a client that had 10,000 people on their list, which is phenomenal, and that's quite a feat. There are a lot of different people that would say, you could have 10,000, but if you only had 500 and they all are willing to listen to you and will interact and open your newsletters and comment on your Facebook or whatever, if you have people who are interested and actually interact with you and take action, if you have 500 of those, you can make more money than if you had 10,000 people who don't do anything.
Okay.
So
Absolutely.
yes.
So what breeds engagement then to that? Like what are the things that you have found work really, really well where people go, whoa, I wanna connect with that.
It's
I wanna respond
changing.
to
Oh my
that.
gosh.
For me,
totally
it was
changing.
It changes all the time.
I did a hot dog bun that I toasted and I put a banana on it with peanut butter, and that got more engagement than any business smart thing that I put hours of research into.
Yeah, it depends on what you're talking about. Social media is always going to be the silly, stupid stuff.
Okay.
That's a reality.
And not as much on LinkedIn as it is on Facebook
LinkedIn
and Twitter.
Right.
LinkedIn is better
So
for
LinkedIn's
provide
more-
some actual valuable content, and people will eat that up. But I think as far as coming back to the email list, I think that's where you can kind of drop in, and it's got to be authentic. Who are you?
Okay.
How are you letting them connect and get to know you? That relationship building. The more authentic I am, the more I let my voice, my true voice, come through. Right down to the fact of swearing in my emails, because that's what I do. It's authentic.
It's you. Yeah,
it's me.
it's you.
Everybody knows. Everybody sends me the memes with the F words because they know who I am. But the more authentic I am in the emails, the more engagement I get, the more interaction, and so I'm building those relationships by being authentic.
Okay.
Don't try any schmarmy kind of schemes. Just be you. Let your voice come out. Let people get to know you.
Okay.
It's the same as if you met someone on the street.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference between someone who's holding something back, or someone who's not truly engaged, or someone who's not, they're trying to be someone else other than themselves to prove or
Posturing and posing.
Yeah.
Doing
So
the selfie.
you can't impress people with things that you're not.
No.
You can only impress people with what you have, so it is really important. And authentic is so overused, but
Yeah,
it is the right word. It's overused for a reason, because it is where people are going nowadays. We have access to everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you want information, it's out there. If you want to know who I am, it's out there. Or Dana or whatever, you can look it up. You can find out everything.
Yeah.
Maybe not everything, but you can find out a lot. And some people have almost everything online. So if you can find out everything and you come out and you're not actually being the way that you would normally be, like if I was to come out and say that I never drink wine, or I never show up that way, but people see a picture of me out with my friends, then it's like, why would she say something like that? Why would she put it down or diss it or walk or skirt around the content if they're afraid to actually be what it is that they are everywhere else? Because we can see you.
So it almost sounds like there's a persona that you have to operate this business. but that persona is really built from the genuine you. It's not like this mask you put on. And again, you can protect your family and children and siblings and all the other people in your lives without exposing them.
Yeah.
But you can still be genuinely you without having to reveal that. Like saying, like, I live at 123 Sunny Street.
You choose to selectively share parts of your story. And just like with writing, you don't over exaggerate the details. You don't give extraneous details.
Right.
Same thing with your marketing. You're going to give the details that are important for the story.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, writers of all of us have an advantage with marketing that most writers don't capitalize on. You guys are good storytellers. Hello. Mm-hmm. Storytelling is the wave of marketing.
Right.
So use your storytelling abilities in all your marketing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it's your story, not just the story of your book.
And that ties back to the first question. So if you're trying to market your book and you're telling a story, but you're trying to tell a story to someone other than who the story is actually for, no one's listening.
Right.
So your marketing has to actually speak to the person that is your target market. And if you speak to a target market and they don't like the book, but you can hit them with the marketing, they're not going to buy the book. So it has to be congruent. Your marketing has to have the same language and attract the same people as the book does.
Yeah. And my piece of advice for anybody who's a writer is to sit and kind of like get that avatar. Everybody talks about the avatar. Who's the avatar of your business? But, see them in 3D. Just as you were creating a character in your book, get that vision of who they are. And then every time you sit down and write something, you're speaking right to them. Okay. You're sharing with them. What is your story? What do they need to hear? And who are they? Like, really sit down and just write just for that one person. Your message will come through way more impactful than trying to say, oh, well, how do I manipulate and how do I twist this and whatnot? But just like, who's that one person? What do they need to hear from me?
Yeah. And that, I think, that is a huge key, because one of the biggest mistakes business people make is when you say, so who's your target market? And I get it a lot. And they go, everyone. Everyone reads.
Writers do that all the time.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh, do they? Yeah. So everyone reads.
No.
Everyone reads.
Not everyone reads.
Not everyone reads.
I don't.
No. And there's lots of people that don't read at all. I have friends who just, reading for pleasure, or reading is a challenge, or maybe not even a challenge. They just don't enjoy it.
Right.
So they read when they have to.
Right.
But they don't want to sit down and read. So first, there's not everybody reads. Not everybody, so you're wrong. Not everybody reads, so stop that. And not everybody wants to read what you write.
Yes.
And some people like being a politician, like being, not everybody's going to agree with your point of view. Not everybody's going to agree with the way you write things. Not everybody's going to like the way you put it out, or the way you tell stories, or your characters, or your content, or your whatever. Not everybody's going to agree with it. So even if you put it out, you have to have that avatar, because you're looking at the person like you who likes the story that you are writing, who likes the content. So I write about business. I write about how people get better in business, because that's what I think about. That's what I really enjoy. And that's who I see when I'm writing. When I'm writing something down, I'm picturing different people for different content that I'm putting into the book, because I know this type of person has this problem. This type of person has this problem, and I can answer it. This type of person has this kind of language, so I'm gonna target them when I'm writing this particular chapter. Yeah. So the book, isn't specifically for one person, but it is covers different people.
And I'm just thinking for writers who, it's not their first book. So you've written a book, you've got a few followers who love you. Get on the phone with them. Like, invite them to a conversation, whether it's on a Zoom call or on a phone call, and find out about them. Like, interview them. Okay. What do they like? Who are they? Get to know them. And then when you're writing your content, you can write to them. I do that. When I'm doing videos, solo podcasts, or anything, I think about some of my clients who I love, who I've worked with over the years, and I'm like, what was their pain, or is their pain? And I just talk right to that.
Okay. So you're not talking to this big vast audience. You're talking to them.
One person. Mm-hmm. And then it feels like when the person's listening to you, especially like my solo podcast, the person who's listening is like, you were talking right to me.
Oh, okay.
They feel that. And it was lasered in on one person, and then the energy goes out to the one person who's listening, because there's only one person listening at a time,
Yeah.
right?
That's what they say.
You
When
listen to
someone's reading a
podcasts-
book,
Yeah.
one person.
One-on-one relationship,
You really are one-on-one.
which is the most powerful thing you can have.
Yeah.
So guess what you can do with that? Well, you can use that for marketing. So you can say, I'm going to write another book, and I really want to find out what you think.
Right.
And then you can have some kind of contest, but you can get people to give you feedback. You could put out a survey if
Yeah.
you know how to write great surveys, because there are some key things that you have to have great questions.
Right.
Yeah.
So that, because you can't do it twice. When you put
Yeah.
out a survey,
Yeah.
you get one chance to get the questions right, and you want them good. So get on the phone with people, and invite people to do different things. So yeah,
They would love it.
Cool. Here's the thing: is I love this because I could just pitch out a question. And this is awesome. Like you guys are gold. I just pitch it out and you guys home run everything. But I just want to go with the one sort of final thought: is you guys have turned your passions into profits by creating them as business, and that's no different than a writer who says, "I just want to be able to write full time and turn that into." What is the some of the best advice or the best things you have learned from taking that passion and making it a reality where this is what you now do full time?
Absolutely. Okay. So fall in love with the hustle.
Okay.
Fall in love with doing the marketing, because you can write all day long, but if nobody's buying your books, it doesn't mean squat. So fall in love with that aspect of it, even if it's just a matter of, I'm doing this so that I get to do my passion, which is writing the book, so that people can enjoy it.
Okay.
And then gradually you can just fall in love with the actual hustle of getting the marketing out. But
Okay.
fall in love with the hustle.
Okay. Cool. And Barb?
Yeah, well, I think understanding what your passion is probably the first thing, because without passion, you will not persist through all the things that you hate doing. So if you can't figure out how to fall in love with the hustle, you still
I don't like talking to people because I just want to write my books.
Right. So you have to pick up the phone. You actually have to pick up the phone and pitch your book and send it places and do different things and maybe even get up and speak. Oh my
God,
gosh.
that's horrible.
And you kind of have to have the passion to drive everything. So if you're not truly passionate about what you did, if you just wrote a book because you're capable of writing, that might show up in the book itself. But beyond that, you can't do anything with it, because it takes a lot of passion to persist through everything. Because business, which your book is, business is a lot more than just doing the writing. Business has everything else, and business owners are a lot more than just what they love to do. It's everything else. So
Yeah. And the way to become a discovered success is get out there and hustle.
Hustle.
Yes. Get out there in front of the people who can discover you.
That is fantastic. Thank you, ladies, so much for taking the time to share some wisdom and insights with me. Let's share with the listeners, because they may not go to the show notes. Let's share in auditory fashion where they can find you online.
So innerdominatrix.com.
Okay.
yeah, and I'm at blitzbusinesssuccess.com and barbstuhlemmer.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. It is always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mark.
This chat with Barb and Dana was recorded this past Tuesday night, and it's late Thursday when I'm recording this. Wednesday, we did our full day business mastermind, and as I mentioned, it was an excellent day filled with insights and tremendous learning. Now, I've gone to hundreds and hundreds of different writing and publishing and book selling conferences in the past couple of decades, and I have learned so many things that I'm grateful for. But I love being reminded that there are so many other things I can learn from folks outside the writing and publishing industry, and that's part of what I learned Tuesday and Wednesday in the casual conversation Tuesday evening, and in the actual workshop on Wednesday, July 18th. Because I've been in writing and publishing for most of my life, I see it in a different way. You can't help but be tainted by your own perspective, but being able to see writing and publishing from the perspective of business folks who run different types of businesses reminds me of what business outside of the business of publishing actually has in common with the business I so love. So like defining a target or core audience, for example, is something that we all have a need for and approach maybe differently. So you can always learn from the way other people define their audiences. Now, Barb and Dana and the other amazing women I spent this mastermind with helped me to reapproach my own perspective and to learn new things about an industry I thought I had a handle on because I was seeing it from the inside for the past 3 decades. I think always learning, always improving what one understands about a subject is great, but I love how adapting a different perspective on it, the perspective from, 4 amazing women outside of the publishing industry, was really helpful to me. Now, what are the other areas of your own life that you can learn from that help you as a writer or help you in your writing and publishing journey? Even if they seem completely different or at odds with writing, are there elements you can learn from and adapt into an understanding that helps you appreciate writing and publishing in a whole new way? I mean, maybe it's the job your spouse or partner or best friend or sibling or parent does. Maybe it's a job you used to work at. Take a minute and think about the parallels, the commonalities. What is something from that business, that job, that lifestyle, that role that you can use to benefit your own learning as a writer? I hope you enjoyed the insights and wisdom from this chat in this episode. Thanks to those who have left reviews for the podcast, those who've emailed, commented, and filled out the recent survey I posted a couple of episodes back. I'm starting to go through the surveys and I'm going to learning more from them, and your feedback helps me make this podcast better for you. Actually, that also makes it better for me, so I appreciate that as well. And thanks to the patrons who support this show through patreon.com/starkreflections. Your patronage helps me with my own goals of a writer, publishing, consultant, coach lifestyle, and helps to cover my time in producing this show, and I appreciate you helping me out in that way. And thanks especially to you for listening. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you again in episode 31 next Friday. Until then, this is Mark Leslie Lefebvre wishing you great writing and good reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.